The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all banana, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood, and he's in the wrong spot, Robert Winfree, yay!
I have no control over where I am in this arrangement, for the record. It's always Mark, and he always forgets to do it until he gets to that point in the intro.
So funny.
It's bad enough that he always puts me at the bottom, but he has to wait till we're actually recording to make sure the world knows that it's not just a case of, oh, Alexis ended up in the bottom. No, Alexis has to go to the bottom.
Look, if you can't handle my casual misogyny here, you should have heard me Saturday on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. I made those two hetero motherfuckers blush.
Oh
That's not that hard.
It's true. So there's a woman I work with who, for the first week or so that she worked there, I kept getting her name wrong. I don't know why. I kept calling her Jen, and part of it was because the girlfriend's name is Jen, and she was like, "Please don't call me Jen. That's my husband's ex-wife's name, and I'd rather you called me anything but that. Like, this is a thing, and I'm not arguing with the thing. It just is." So then I called her Jen 20 more times because I'm old and feeble.
Well, wait, what was her actual name?
Kirsten.
I was waiting for you to say like Janet or something. Like, how do you get?
But here's the thing: I totally had to do that like Kentucky Fried Movie Zucker Brothers thing of now every time I say her name, I go, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Kirsten." And there's that literal pause. I've also been doing lately the thing where the Mel Brooks, Judas, would you like a beverage? You know, one of you shall betray me this night. Judas, what? Would you like a beverage? And so I will now walk into the room, and when I want to address her, I will just go, "Miller!" And she's like, "What? Have you heard?" And I'll just go like talking normal.
Have you tried the mulled wine?
Yeah. Have you tried them? I'm going to use that tomorrow. Thank you. And scream at her like, you know, the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket and go, would you try the mulled wine? Hey, Robert.
The world needs more Arlie Ermy impersonators.
You're tempting me to go into part of that diatribe, and it will get us thrown off of every platform so fast.
What do you got to say for yourself, fat body?
Where are you from, Brad?
You're the kind of guy who gives someone a blank and not even have the sex. Yeah.
You look like the kind of someone and not even have the common courtesy to give him a.
Oh, that's the quote. Thank you.
Only two things come from Texas.
Steers and queer.
Which one are you? You don't look like a steer to me, son.
Hey, here's to Arlie Ermy, the only man who ever got away with ad-libbing in a Kubrick movie.
I like you. I'd let you F my sister. All right.
Who was the first then?
There's segments of Dr. Strangelove where Peter Sellers ad-libs.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you don't tell Peter Sellers not to ad-lib, and he was probably too damn scared of Arlie Ermy to tell him to stop.
Right.
Well, that's the entire reason he hired Ermy was because Ermy was originally there as an advisor.
Yeah.
As the technical advisor for that scene, and the guy they'd hired to be that role just couldn't get the cadence right, couldn't get it right, and he watched Ermy do it a few times and went, "How about you just do this?"
So to round this all the way back to the beginning again, yes, Alexis, I have to publicly make sure that everybody knows you're on the bottom of me and Robert. Hey, what family entertainment are we discussing tonight, Robert?
Well, for those of you who stuck through the casual homophobia of all of this, we got misogyny, we got homophobia, we got it all, people.
As
Yeah,
long as it's casual.
yeah.
As long as it's casual.
Really, the black tie affair is when we kind of have to draw the line. Like, if we're going that formal with it, it's just kind of a pain. Tonight, however, we are discussing Despicable Me 4. Mark?
Yes, sir. Despicable Me 4 is a 2024 American animated comedy film produced by Universal Pictures and Illumination, Banana, and distributed by Universal. It serves as the prequel to Despicable Me 3, the fourth main installment, and the sixth overall installment in the Despicable Me franchise.
Sequel, not prequel.
Yes. Yes. The film was directed by Chris Renaud, co-directed by Patrick Delage, and his feature directorial debut produced by Chris Meledandri and Brett Hoffman, written by Mike White and Ken Daurio. It stars the voices of Steve Carell, Kristen Wiig, Pierre Coffin, Joey King, Miranda Cosgrove, Steve Coogan, Sofía Vergara playing Sofía Vergara, Stephen Colbert, Renaud, Madison Polan, Dana Gaier, Chloe Fineman, and Will Ferrell. In the film, Gru and his family are forced to relocate to a safe house to hide from Maxime Le Mal, played by Will Ferrell, an old rival of Gru who seeks revenge for his girlfriend Valentina. At the same time, one of the new neighbors, Poppy Prescott, is intent on returning Gru to villainy. So the guys from Critically Acclaimed made a point of saying this is the same plot of Steve Martin's My Blue Heaven, which I haven't thought about that movie in years, but they are not wrong. And what a great
They
movie.
are entirely right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to admit I've never heard of My Blue Heaven.
The basic premise is Steve Martin goes into witness protection. And because he's Steve Martin, he's kind of bad at it. And
Yeah, I believe he plays like a mafioso.
Imagine a comedy version of Goodfellas where the inciting incident is the end.
Oh, you know what? I've seen scenes of this when I was a kid. With Steve Martin doing the incredibly over-the-top Italian gangster voice.
Yes. It is
So
an
many
oldie
great
but a
scenes in
goodie.
the supermarket.
Yeah, it's such a great movie. Anyway, Robert and I reviewed at least one or two of the Despicable Me movies. We definitely did the first two Minions.
I think here we've only talked about Despicable Me 3. I don't know if we reviewed 2.
Probably not if it goes that far back. I mean, we only started doing this in earnest in 2014, and the Despicable Me movies. Yeah, Despicable Me 3 was 2017.
We might have done 2.
2, no, because 2 was 2013, and I wasn't doing this back then. And the first one was 2010, and my kid wasn't even born yet, so no.
I was going to say, do you remember a video where you both started singing along to Pharrell's Happy? Because if you didn't, if you don't, then you didn't do 2.
We definitely didn't do 2. I think we did 17 because that would have made sense. That's when we were doing these almost weekly. We definitely did Minions because that was our big discussion about. That was the one with him and I. That was the original Freaky Friday where Robert became me and I became him, because I'm sitting here going, but I don't understand. How did this beat Inside Out too? And Robert, beat me until I understood that until I was forced to remember that lighthearted comedy will always do better than emotional comedy, an emotional movie, 100 out of 100 times. And I was like, all right.
Lighthearted, physical-based comedy translates internationally incredibly well.
Very true.
Look, Inside Out is a much better movie than Minions. You're never going to hear me say otherwise.
Yes.
But which one am I going to watch easier? Which one am I going to laugh at more? Which one's easier to translate to French and German and Japanese and Chinese audiences?
Two words.
The little yellow guys running into it. It's King Bob.
So you want a perfect
easy to translate.
So you want a perfect example of that? 2 words. Jerry Lewis.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mention that, and this is kind of where I wanted to start the pre-discussion tonight, pre-review discussion. Something that William Bibiani mentioned during their review on Critically Acclaimed, which I didn't love their review of this, but the one I always been able to pull something out of their review, even if I don't particularly like it, and that is how European this series is, which it didn't occur to me. And normally I'm really good at picking up, like, Robin and I and poor Jesse, who will never be the same after this, talking about for 3 hours, talking about Refn, and Robin and I have over the last decade or so periodically depending on what it is we're talking about like French films and French New Wave and all of that. And so I always associate like more serious fare with French films. I'd never even considered that the motif, the aesthetic of these silly ass Despicable Me movies lean European, like lean French. But that's something that he picked up on and made a point of talking about.
It happens more the more it goes on. Despicable Me 1 is fairly American. I won't say very, but fairly.
Mm-hmm.
2's a little bit harder to pin down. By the time we get to 3, I mean 3 is spy x spy basically, right? And that it's very much, it leans a lot more European. Some of the architecture leans more European. It feels, just a lot of it feels a little bit different by the time we get to 3. The Minions actually, this is because as the Despicable Me proper becomes a bit more European, and in this case a bit more French, the Minions actually retain their Americanism. The first one, I mean, the second one, Minions 2, the finale takes place in Chinatown in San Francisco. There's a whole scene where one of the Minions hops a ride with Easy Rider across Death Valley. Like,
it is worth pointing out that the Despicable Me franchise was started by French filmmakers, and the original Despicable Me, I believe, is like, not including the voice cast, of course, but 90% of the crew were French.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good. That's a brilliant and really interesting point, Alexis. Which is something I didn't even realize. Like I said, I've seen all of these because there was a period where I was taking my kids to the drive-in to go see a lot of the family stuff. So I've seen all these Despicable. God, in 2010, again before Lily was born, I don't know what possessed me to go see it, but I did because I remember. I remember the movie.
Funny.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I own it on DVD, and it's one of those animated films I could put on and watch it over and over again, like back to back, and I still laugh at it. It's not one of those like, oh, it's good for backgrounds. Like, no, it still makes me laugh.
It's from one, and it's been years since I've watched these, but it's a solid premise. I mean, essentially, like, it's funny. The guys from Critically Acclaimed brought this up. They're like, it's a world full of villains and no heroes. And the villains are all kind of competing to be who can be the best villain. And Gru's whole thing is like he wants to do the biggest heist ever. It's a solid premise. And I think that's where they introduce the girls. And, he goes on this really nice arc of deep down inside, he's a decent fella. He's just trying to prove his worth. And I think, Robert, which one is it where they address the fact that a lot of this comes from a lot of his insecurities and his drive to be the best villain possible comes from his mother making him feel inadequate? Was that the second
first one?
That's still the first one. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of grist for the mill there.
There's one of the flashbacks in the first one is him watching like the Apollo missions, and he goes, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to go to the moon." And she just looks at him and goes, "I'm sorry, son. They already got done with the phase where they're sending up the monkeys."
It's like NASA. NASA is no longer sending the monkeys. And then he was like, "Look, Ma, I drew a picture of the rocket. Look, Ma, I made a macaroni prototype. Yeah. Look, Ma, I made a real working rocket based off of the macaroni prototype."
Not all of us have supportive parents. Not all of us at this podcast have supportive parents. Some of us have more supportive parents than others. So I think the Gru stuff there is wildly relatable. Him adopting these 3 girls and learning about himself and them forming a family, and the concept of found family, again, highly relatable for most people. So like the whole like fighting you on why is this thing popular? I don't think I ever fought you on the Despicable Me stuff. Despicable Me, I understood why these became $1 billion franchise. The jittering gibberish minions doing and you have, and I'm not fighting you on this anymore. I'm setting up for people, remember I have to now talk to an audience. I think where I didn't see the value in the minions was I didn't see them as modern Looney Tunes characters. And you were the one who, over the course of many conversations about this very subject, were the ones that kind of clued me into who's doing the best kind of animated physical comedy out there that has broad appeal and a massive audience, but the Minions, and you are not wrong.
It's also kind of interesting. You look at how many other animated films have tried so hard to replicate the success of the Minions. Think about how the idea now is not just to have one little cute comedic sidekick. It's to have an army of the comedic sidekicks who are all just crazy. How many films have tried to do that and they have all bombed? And it's been like, no, that's
Horribly.
not funny. It's like I mean, I can't believe I'm using this phrase, but the Minions are literally lightning in a bottle. It's like whatever works about them is not going to be duplicated.
What are some of the examples of ones that have failed and off the top of your head?
What was someone didn't? Oh yeah, it was a Doug Walker thing where he joked about it when he reviewed Norm of the North, and he talked about the lemmings that were constantly falling around Norm, and he said flat out the lemmings were clear Minions ripoffs.
Gotcha.
And he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
No, that's also very dead on. When we talked about Minions and some of the old audio only stuff, people, because we're a totally different audience now that we're on video. Robin and I had an excellent conversation about, and I'm gonna cue you up for this. I'm gonna hand you the rugby ball. We had a really long and in-depth conversation about how the Minions is about, finding faith. It's about, looking towards something bigger than yourself to believe in. And then Robert put out there one of the rare instances where he addresses his own faith, that there's an LDS, you said? Latter-day Saints. Yeah. There's an LDS reading of Minions, which, because I'm not LDS and it's not something I think about on an ongoing basis, took me by surprise, but he was not wrong.
Well, the guys who directed, I think, the Minions movie and some of the higher-ups at Illumination are members of the church. So it's not terribly shocking, but yeah, it's the first Minions movie. Remind me to tell you about the LDS reading of the original Indiana Jones trilogy sometime, because that one's funny.
You've mentioned that one a few times, but yes.
But yeah, the first Minions movie is all about the search for purpose in life and realizing that you're never going to find that absent finding something bigger than yourself. And the perseverance to continue looking for that even after it fails multiple times.
It's interesting because the plot of the original Minions movie was the Minions serve whoever the most evil is, and so
whoever the big boss is of the time.
Right.
So it's the T-Rex, it's Julius Caesar, it's Napoleon, it's
Dracula. I think at one point they skip Hitler for obvious reasons.
They do want this to be aired in Europe.
Yeah. But I do think it's interesting that we picked up on. Yes, they're trying to kind of shoehorn a backstory in that makes some degree of sense in the greater Despicable Me franchise. But people got really stuck on, and I'm thinking again of the critically acclaimed guys, they got really stuck on, no, they just follow whoever the most evil is. And I'm like, this is a parable about finding God. Like you're being very literal in these translations, and this was clearly intended to be more of a metaphor than it was to be a literal, a literal translation. And it's like,
moreover, like even that reading, like they don't follow the most evil. They follow like the combination of ambition and success, where there's a lot of people with those qualities who aren't good people. Don't get me wrong, but if evil was their primary category, there's a bunch of other people these little things would have attached themselves to.
Yeah, I don't remember if they followed Genghis Khan around at all.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and
yeah,
for some reason, a lot of people.
If they had followed fucking Stalin, you could just imagine the entire army of minions just banging shoes on the UN table. Banana!
I can imagine that. Yes,
I will bury you without a. Shut up! Stop banging shoes. I don't know.
So yeah, we talked about Minions in that respect. Then you can go back and listen to our review of Minions 2, which is still a lot of fun. It doesn't quite have the same tenor to it that the first Minions does. It's
not as deep. No. It was like I feel like the people we're gonna shoehorn this very positive message about faith in a very a-religious world, and if we can get away with it, we will. But we can't try that again. People are on to us now. So they made a very straightforward, family-friendly, crowd-pleasing movie, and they got, in my opinion, probably my generation, and I'm Gen X. My generation's probably one of the best actresses going at the time was Sandra Bullock. And her character is fucking fantastic in that movie. And I bring it up because it's going to come back when we talk about Despicable Me 4. The franchise is probably the last thing I'm going to say, and we can move on. The franchise, I think, has done a really, really good job of not only telling a solid story, not only showing really solid arcs for the characters. I mean, Gru changes. One of the nice things about the movie is that Gru changes in every single one of these to one degree or another.
Yeah.
In this one, it's not a criticism. It was an observation I made. Gru's not the star of this movie. He has the most screen time, but this is about his baby. This is about baby Gru.
A little bit, yeah.
Baby Gru's the one that goes on the arc this time. Gru is just there because you can't just let this be the baby. Gru has to do stuff and move things along, but it's the baby that it's the baby who changes. I think it's a fascinating way to do this. But the previous three, there was something in it each time where Gru was different from the previous movie and continued to evolve, which I think, and I'll pitch it to you, Robert, to comment on this. I think a lot of movies fail at that, where they have to reset the character from zero each successive movie.
Allow me to provide a multitude of examples.
Sure.
Let's start with the entire recent Star Trek franchise and film.
Okay.
Every movie, everyone gets reset to zero.
Yep.
Every one of them. It's pathetic, quite frankly.
Yeah. Kirk never learns anything. Spock never learns anything. And we're talking about the Chris Pine one for people to, and the not Leonardo DiCaprio, whatever the fuck the kid's name, Zachary Pinto.
I do, but they actually give an example. It's not just, there's a difference between this is a new timeline, so it makes sense why they would, not remember this, and something like Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where why do you not remember the shit you just went through?
Well, I think more of what we're also saying is they don't continue to evolve at all. Everything they've learned in the last movie, and I don't mean like factual knowledge, I mean as a person, they promptly forget in the next film, and they go through the same exact arc.
Okay.
The fact that we start Star Trek Into Darkness, totally not Wrath of Khan, by the way, with Kirk getting sent back to the Academy for reasons.
So he can be there when they blow it up. That's why.
Okay, fine. You were talking about Into Darkness, not the reset from the first.
No. First one gets a pass.
Okay,
first one gets a pass.
Yeah.
But every successive one, they don't change. They go on an arc for a movie, and then next movie we just start back at the starting line. I mean, later MCU characters do this. I'll give you the first round actually does a decent job of avoiding some of this trap. But by the fourth time we see Tony Stark on screen, he stops changing.
Yeah.
He's just they threw a pile of money at Robert Downey Jr., said, do the snark. He showed up and he did the snark.
Right.
And, at what point did Scott Lang do anything? That's a character that's like, okay, I'm going to show up and get over my thieving ways. And then each movie, he's just not. He's just the same guy over and over and over again.
So what's nice about these Despicable Me movies is that for the first three, not so much this one, but for the first three, Gru is a continually changing character. Everybody else stays the same, or they introduce somebody new, so there is no change there. But Gru, we've watched him evolve over if you count the one Minions movie, we don't have to count that. 3 successive movies, which brings us to this one. And I think there was a challenge there of what else can we do with Gru? Nothing. However, we can give him a kid who hates him and see where that takes us. And when I saw the trailers for it, I was like, oh God, this stupid trope. But we'll get into the review now. I thought they actually handled it well. So unless you got anything else about this franchise, Alexis, 3, 2, 1.
I think we can go ahead and start.
Robert, hit me with that sexy graphic plot synopsis.
I can promise neither sex nor graphic, but the only graphic I want with you, Mark, is violence, and it's going to happen when we meet.
So make sure you kick me in the balls for Alexis, because Alexis has been wanting that for a while now.
Why do you think I insisted that when you and I finally met in Florida, we take a picture of me punching you and put that on the group chat?
And was it as good for you as it was for me, honey? Robert,
Oh,
plot
absolutely.
synopsis.
All right, so this movie opens with we see Gru. He is attending his high school reunion. My hunch is this is about the 20th anniversary because, okay, minor bit about why I like this franchise so much. I watched the first one and everyone I knew immediately looked at me and said, "Congratulations, you're Gru."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
For the record, I think it's actually their 40 because I'm like 90% sure at one point we see something that says class of 85.
I'm aware. That's why I said 20. Oh, sorry, class of 85. My mistake. Yeah, it would be either that. No, hang on. Was it 85 or just 04?
I swear that was an 8.
Okay, it might have been. Somewhere in my head was 04 because that's the year I graduated high school, so 20 years ago.
Wow. I
Feel old yet?
graduated in 1994.
I know. You're 10 years
2002.
older than me.
Mm.
So he brings a couple of minions to attend his high school reunion for his alma mater in villainy. He is looking for his old nemesis, Will Ferrell, doing a French accent, because we all hate Will Ferrell. Especially doing accents. And
I'll hold off on saying anything till we get to the craft.
I kid. This is actually one of the most tolerable things Ferrell's done in like 10 years. So they attend the reunion. Gru and Maxime still have some heat. They eventually arrest him. They drag him off. He has hybridized himself with a cockroach. Because why not?
Everyone's got to have a gimmick.
Yes.
Because why not? Seriously.
I mean, we keep saying how cockroaches are going to be, are going to survive the nuclear winter. So, there are worse animals he could have paired with. Keep going.
Yeah. No, seriously, that's his gimmick. Cockroaches.
So he gets arrested. We cut back to Gru and the family where he now has a son. We have Gru Jr., who loves his mother and doesn't care much for his dad.
Yeah, I didn't relate to that at all.
We'll get to it. And things are kind of going okay for Gru. The family's all settled. The girls are doing okay. Things are good. And then Maxime breaks out of prison. Because of course he does. And begins threatening them. So for safety purposes, they all uproot and move to a safe house in Mayflower. And it's not great. They have to live next door to Stephen Colbert, which is probably about the most insufferable thing you can imagine.
It's pretty much the exact same character he played in Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
And they give everyone new names. And poor Gru is now Chet Cunningham, a salesman of solar panels.
Poor Agnes refuses to lie. She's so convinced that she shouldn't lie. She just can't bring to tell anyone what her new name is.
Was that Agnes or was that?
Yeah, it's Margot Edith Agnes.
I thought Edith was the smallest one, but
no,
yeah.
Edith's the tough girl in the pink.
They play such a small role in this movie, it does not matter. Keep going.
Fair enough. Yeah, and Agnes, because she doesn't want to lie, just can't express her fake name, which gets into some hilarity at the local McDojo, which I did not relate to at all, by the way. I didn't watch that and crack up repeatedly. Or being dropped off and like, okay, you be here while I go to work for 9 hours. Like, yeah, it's not a martial arts themed daycare in theory. His wife becomes a hairdresser and that goes horribly wrong in the best way possible.
Can I tell you, I just showed Jonas Terminator and Terminator 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. Which version of Terminator 2? Director's cut or theatrical cut?
Whatever was on my Apple TV at the time. Probably theatrical.
Probably theatrical, which, to be fair, I actually prefer.
So when
Really?
she's running to the dun 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 dun, Jonas
Dun,
like
dun, dun,
snorted coke. He was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
not up. I mean out.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he was like, I get this joke.
Yeah.
I understood that. Fucking Captain America.
So yeah, they're struggling to fit in, and most of the minions go with Ramsbottom to the AVL headquarters in some truly hilarious side plots.
Yeah, you see them running around the office, and it's just like no one should be forced to deal with it. It's like letting a bunch of kindergartners loose in the FBI. It has disaster written.
They are
all
less
over.
well behaved than the Boss Babies.
So
Yes.
so basically like the FBI, but I digress.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's some experiments that go on with them. They make the Mega Minions. They
Wait
take
for
like the
it.
4
No.
minions from Minions 2 and turn them into plays on a couple of very obvious, well-known superheroes. We have a minion that's the Thing. We have one that flies with a cone head. We have the Cyclops minion because it's actually got one eye and shoots lasers out of it, so he's a real Cyclops.
We have a Mr. Fantastic one.
We have a stretchy one. And they outfit them in their disguises of yellow spandex, which I just can't tell you how much that tickled me. So there's some stuff going on with them, including them trying. They're the world's worst superheroes. They try to save people and make things better, and just nothing works. And finally, the crowd turns on them and goes, "We're sick of superheroes," and chases them away.
Yeah, they are the adorable banana version of Axel Foley from Beverly Hills Cop, where in a single-minded pursuit of one felon, he destroys the city of Detroit.
I was going to say they're like the Seven if they didn't have Vought to back them up and make sure everyone knew everything is okay.
Sure.
This is what the Fantastic Four movie is going to be when it actually comes out. It's just going to be terrible, and the people are going to continue. This is our brief meta commentary on the state of film. We're sick of superheroes. Go away.
Keep going.
And yet, I'm still convinced we're getting that Mega Minion spinoff.
We'll see. I do want to talk about that when we get to it.
They're going to keep making these, so yeah, I would imagine Mega Minions 3 is Mega Minions. Mega Minions Infinity War.
Just
Infinity Banana.
And I hope.
Fingers crossed.
really, the crossover we're waiting for is for the Minions to get dropped into the Nintendo universe, and they fight with Donkey Kong over the bananas.
Shit, that would actually be good.
Could you imagine like a battle of the 5 armies, but it's like Mario, Sonic, the Minions, you know?
Everyone converges on the cave of bananas that was recently liberated.
It's like, I am Mario, banana! And they just run at each other like the Battle of Pelennor Fields.
I would take it. I would absolutely take it. So back in Mayflower, poor Edith has to start a new school. That goes iffy. But the big thing going on here is their next door neighbor, Stephen Colbert's daughter, wants to pursue a life of crime. And okay, but about the character. She recognizes Gru and tries to convince him to help her do enough crime to look good on her resume to try and get into his alma mater. And just that's where I want to go to school and pursue villainy. And Gru's like, yeah, I don't know. 40-year-old guy, 12-year-old girl alone in a treehouse. I'm not sure that this is a thing we should really be pursuing.
This can't end anyway but poorly.
But this is France, so we're okay with it.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, used to be. Now France is basically an extension of Neverland. Leaving that alone. He's being blackmailed. So he says, fine, what do you want to do? I want to go steal the mascot. You want to steal Lenny? The honey badger? Yes.
We actually get we get the line, honey badgers don't care. I can't believe they actually put that in.
It was like nothing like shoehorning a joke that ages your cartoon well beyond where it should be.
Well, I'll allow it because the actual honey badger don't care thing was from like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're enough removed from the memery
You can also get away with it because he's an old man dad. And
Yes.
speaking for old man dads everywhere, we are always saying things that are out of touch and out of time. That's kind of our thing.
That's the other reason this works.
Yeah.
So they go steal the honey badger. Hilarity ensues. Some things work, some things don't, but Gru gets to do what he's good at. And they successfully steal the honey badger. The girl is enthralled with the thrill of villainy, but it's like, you know what? You were good. I'm not going to be a giant, pain in the butt over this. You did what I asked you to do, and we're all good now. But in the course of them breaking in, they were found on the school security camera, and the school principal, who wants the honey badger back, calls Maxime, who was her favorite student, and goes, "Yep, I got a tracker on my honey badger because he's been chipped, like you should do with your pets. And now I know exactly where Gru is." So this leads to our big climactic battle. Maxime's plan is just to steal Gru's kid because, okay, he's an evil villain. I'll allow it. And there's a hilarious scene of them playing tennis, and then Maxime shows up. We get our big battle there, and in the course of Gru doing all of this stuff, the kid starts realizing, no, I do love my dad. Because men bond with sons differently than daughters, and baby boys bond with figures differently than little girls do. Who'd have thought? There's biological differences. They're ultimately able to defeat Maxime. They bring back Dr. Nefario for a brief cameo to unsplice their DNA.
Not voiced by Russell Brand because the franchise is not stupid enough to say that it's okay to work with him again.
Also, you didn't need him for the 2 lines of dialogue.
Mostly that. Then Gru so they all move back home. Everything's kind of going okay. Gru goes back to talk with Maxime and reveals that he did in fact troll him all those years ago in the 8th grade talent show, and it was a deliberate attempt to ruin his reputation. After Maxime, we briefly talk about the cycle of vengeance and how to break it. And they close the movie by singing one of the worst songs by one of the worst
shut
bands.
the fuck up. Get the... Oh my God. Of all the things you've said in the 100 years we've been working together, that's the worst. Everybody Wants to Rule the World is amazing, and Tears for Fears are also 1,000 years old, but still amazing. You have no taste in culture.
I said what I said, and I'll stand by it.
I'm sure you will.
That song is basically a Coldplay song. That's how bad it is.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
So I think that ending's kind of interesting because while, again, I'm still putting my money on a Mega Minion spinoff, the ending itself feels like a curtain call because we see that all the villains that we have seen throughout this series, including in the 2 Minions movies, are in this prison that Gru and Maxime are having a sing-off in.
I only want to disagree with you in the following way because I don't necessarily disagree with the interpretation that it might be a curtain call. It won't be. This thing still makes $1 zillion. But also, I think it ends as kind of a love letter to the fans of this franchise. I mean, it's 6 movies, and almost every single one of them has been a spectacular hit. This might be just this crew's way of saying thank you. We have no idea why you like us as much as you do. We've certainly seen you push off, disregard other franchises that may have been better in quality, but you stuck with this nonsense. And so, hey, here's to you. This, Robert will get this reference. Maybe you will, Alexis. I don't know how much of this you watch with Sean, but that ending with Steve Austin, drinking a beer with whoever and just going, here's to you. It was a Cheers moment, not Cheers the show, but it was, I loved it. One of the few things about this movie that I genuinely loved was, not that I hated the movie or anything, but was that recognition of the fans being with the franchise and saying, here's something for you guys. Let's celebrate this together with one of the best songs ever written in the history of music.
If that's your actual belief, Mark.
It is now.
We both know it isn't.
Tears for Fears and Metallica, baby. Anyway, Alexis, what else? What are your other thoughts on the craft elements of this movie?
As always, Steve Carell really brings his A game. He has done just as great job voicing Gru. Kristen Wiig always does a fun job doing voiceover work. I love that. It's so funny that she actually played a different character in the first movie She was the head of the adoption agency, and she just did such a good job. They brought her in as this new character, Lucy, and she's a lot of fun. Kind of laughing that Miranda Cosgrove, I think she was like 15 when the first movie came out. She's 31 now, and she still sounds perfect as Margot. And Will Ferrell, you know, regardless of what you say about him as an actor, and I have heard so much, voice acting is, I would say, his strongest point. Whenever he actually does, I think whenever he does voiceover work, he nails it. I absolutely loved, when I saw Mastermind, I didn't think the movie was that great, but I love him in it. He's got really good comedic timing. He's very good at like throwing himself into these characters.
I'll piggyback on that point and agree with you by simply saying, Will Ferrell, I agree with you. Will Ferrell has a great talent for voice acting. I think he has a very unique voice, which sounds weird because you're like at first blush, you're like, he sounds like a dude. He sounds like a man. But I think when you are able to separate that voice from the body and you see it on these various animated characters, I actually think he has a very pleasant tone in his voice that lends itself to great leading characters, whether they be heroes or villains or whatever. And I'll tell you, the kind of thinking through it now, it's probably rare because I think and you would know, you're the expert on this more so than I am. A lot of voice actors are very distinct, but uncommon sounding. You know, they sound like the Brain from Pinky and the Brain, or they sound, you know, they're doing something with their voice that makes them sound, you know, not human. And Will Ferrell has a very pleasant sounding human voice.
Very true. Not to mention, again, we get a lot of voiceovers that are just casting celebrities for the case of casting celebrities, you know, and we're not going to go down the Super Mario Chris Pratt well again, but there have been a lot of cases. But then you hear Will Ferrell, it's like, no, when you cast Will Ferrell to do voice acting, it's not just that he's a famous comedian, a famous actor. He actually can pull the weight. Very similar to Jack Black.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, really enjoyed him. Again, I honestly think we're going to see studies in animation on why the Minions work the way they do. Because again, this is something that on paper, it's like, no, you're overusing the Minions. They're plastered on everything. Go to Bed Bath & Beyond. Those things are on, oh my God, so much crap. You know, and we should be hating them. We should hate every scene that they're in. You know, it should be like Olaf from Frozen, like, oh yes, it's cute, kill it with fire. But they're still funny. And I don't get what the secret is that has made these guys work so well and last so long and still be so profitable that I watch them on the screen and I go, yeah, all these years later, and yeah, I'm still laughing at these little shits.
I have a couple of ideas about that, believe it or not.
Go.
Please.
Yeah.
Well, one is
my craft review is not going to be long, so take the ball.
The fundamental character design going on is both not infinitely, but it's exponentially malleable. And it's also very easy. Like they're basically smiley face emojis.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of things. There's a lot of things in our everyday life that bear passing resemblance to some of how these things are designed. Again, any number of emoticons or emojis that you can use. They've got the same basic setup as, you know, The Simpsons. It's yellow, blue pants. So the color combination is helpful. The fact that you can't understand them, I think, goes so far. It carries so much water that you can understand them, but you don't have to listen to them the same way you have to listen to Olaf or any number of other characters that are like, here's our merchandising opportunity. Please pay attention to it.
Kind of reminds me of the discussion we had about Godzilla versus Kong, where they're like emoting with their face, and they're just growling and screaming and roaring at each other. But as I tried to point out to you when we did the first Godzilla versus Kong, they're speaking to each other. There's a conversation happening here. You got to be able to. You have to be able to hear and interpret dog, essentially, to get it.
Yeah, so that helps a great deal, and the fact that they're not all the same, like this is another thing that helps a lot. You know, it's Olaf. There's a lot of Olaf, but it's only Olaf. The minions, there's actually a bunch of different minions. Like, yes, they're all minions, but there's enough variation in character design there to make them not monolithic in the way that gets grating. It would be my hunch.
So I want to jump in here with my craft review. I thought it was okay, first of all. I had a very similar opinion about this movie that I had to Inside Out 2, which, like, this feels like 3 episodes of the Despicable Me show, because this is 3 underdeveloped plots. Gru goes on an adventure with a child sidekick is 1 episode. The Minions become the Fantastic Four is 1 episode. And
the terrible, the worst version.
yeah, the Frightful Four.
The Minions become the worst version. Somehow, still not as bad as the 4-stick, but pretty close.
And
Admit
then,
it though, it was funny to see them try to reenact the Spider-Man 2 train scene. Come
Yes.
on, that had
hilarious.
to get a giggle out of you guys.
look, neither one of us sitting here saying, like, especially more Robert than me, but neither one of us saying, like, I had a bad time with this. But here comes objective criticism. This, I don't want to throw words like cash grab out there or or rush or whatever. This was clearly done with love and care. So I'm not going to be dismissive of the product. I hate when the guys are critically acclaimed or anyone else does it. So I'm not going to join in the chant, as the saying goes. But I will tell you, I don't think they had a very strong plot for this. And so they had to weave together 3 weaker plots to make a decent sized rope to pull this thing through. So again, it's 3 episodes of the Despicable Me show. It's Gru and Poppy go on an adventure. The Minions become the Frightful Four. And then in the 3rd episode, the baby hates Gru. And Gru is in a feud with, Frenchie McGee. And by the end of it, the baby loves Gru. And, and Frenchie and Gru understand each other a little bit better now. Which
It is probably worth pointing out the whole
Mhm.
thing with Lucy becoming a hairdresser. Well, that whole chase, the scene with her, just
Mhm.
it's like, is that supposed to be smoking? I think like my stylist has never made my hair smoke, but that scene still made me laugh pretty hard. And then the whole chase scene in the grocery store, it's funny, but you could have cut it out and lost nothing.
Yeah, a lot of the My Blue Heaven stuff. So there's 4 episodes of this. A lot of the My Blue Heaven stuff, like, it's isolated and on its own. So this feels very episodic. It doesn't feel cohesive. And I think that's why I was struggling to get through. And clock in at this clocked in at. This was a brisk movie. This is 94 minutes. Yeah. And the fact that they were struggling this much to get to 94 minutes with this much shit thrown on the screen to keep it going means that, like, they really didn't have anything. And so they just kind of threw a lot of crap together because, again, the Minion stuff was disconnected from everything else. I mean, it all ties together at the end, but, like, so what? They went out of their way to make sure everything ties up so that guys like us don't say this doesn't come together at all. Okay. Some pretty elementary screenwriting there. My positive things are the baby's arc, and this is the one thing I wanted to make sure I talked about. I love the baby's arc. I love that it starts off with, it's not bonded with Gru and as a dad. And I was just talking to Lily about this tonight. Sometimes, and I brought this up on Saturday when we discussed Axel F, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, that as parents, sometimes you throw everything into your kid and it doesn't always come back the way as much as you want it to. Now, the thing to remember is that kids grow up, they separate from their parents, and if you've done any decent job of parenting, they are able to exist without you. That is the goal. That sucks for the parent, though, when you love your children and cling to them and don't want them to leave the nest just yet, but they must. They should. And so there's Gru trying to bond with this baby, and I can remember, not to get too off on a tangent, but I can remember doing an entire podcast about this with Larry, the dearly departed Larry Zonka, that I was struggling to get Jonas to bond with me Like Lily was easy. Lily was a crowd, Lily was a people pleaser. I did funny faces. She laughed. It was great. We had a great relationship as infant to father. I would do the same shit with Jonas, and Jonas would look at me the way Robert is now. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, pal? You need to come with your fucking A game if you want to impress me. Like, oh Jesus, this is,
Of course he loves you. He just doesn't show it with his face or body language.
Yeah, I was there, man. I experienced that live. Like Jonas and I get along great now, but it took an enormous amount of work. Did I have to climb up an unfinished building and fight a cockroach? Maybe, but we eventually got there with time and effort. So there was a lot of relatability in the movie, which is all I can ask for. And I like the fact that that's where the baby starts, and by the end of it, it's this really nice moment of the baby is under the cockroach spell, and then it sees all the wonderful things the father did for it, as all fathers should, and it breaks the spell, and he helps Gru defeat the enemy. The other really funny scene in the movie, and you kind of skipped over it in the plot synopsis, but it was one of my favorite scenes, is I have loved having children, and I have loved watching them, and some of the fun of watching them is seeing what they'll do with their environment. So letting the baby loose in the office at Hogwarts, and the baby's just playing with the buttons, and they're just watching him. So it's these like lasers going across the room, like you've seen in every spy movie, and they're like, "Oh, baby Gru, you turned it off." He turns it back on again because he's just whacking the button at this point, And they're just and I have made that face. I have made that face that Gru makes at his kid, going, "Are you fucking kidding me? Please stop! You're driving me nuts."
Oh, he's having fun. Little too much fun.
Yeah, if you haven't been there, you don't have children. It's like every parent has watched that moment with their kid going, "What the fuck are you doing?" And every child has had that moment of, "I'm mildly irritating my parent. Let me stop." But God, that's fun. Remind me to do this while they're sleeping soundly. So the stuff with the baby for me is the best part, and he's the star of the movie. It's his movie. He's the one that goes on the arc. He learns to love his dad at the end. It's all good stuff there. Kristen Wiig and the girls are utterly unused. Your guys are remembering more of the movie that they were in. I'll admit some of the stuff with the girls and Kristen Wiig I dozed off during. But I also feel like 4 movies into this, they don't care about the girls anymore. The girls didn't sell zillions of dollars in merchandise. The Minions do. So, Gru gets good play. When they invent new characters, the new characters get new play because they're new. And the Minions get good play. The girls might as well not have been in the movie. At this point, age them up and send them to college. So send Kristen Wiig on a single woman's fucking cruise or something. I don't know. But they don't belong in the movie anymore. They don't do anything with them. Beyond that, the color paletting is really pretty, as it always is with these Illumination movies. I don't know what, like, them and Pixar, they really make the most of the technology that they have. These movies are gorgeous looking. That's pretty much all I got. Robert? Oh, I loved the ending with all the villains. Like, I looked over at my daughter, especially when they showed the one Beyonce character,
Bell Bottom.
Yeah, and between her and the Sandra Bullock character, my daughter was like up and dancing because I am a good father, and I took my kids to go see Tears for Fears a couple of summers ago, and we've done karaoke to Everyone Wants to Rule the World. So
Tears for Fears is still touring?
Yes, they're 100,000 years old, and they look it. They look like the dancing skeletons from the Disney Halloween cartoon. See, I knew that was going to get you. That was going to pop you. But yeah, at the end of it, regardless of what you think of the band, the song, or whatever, Lily especially, because she recognized all the villains, was having the time of her life. And it was, other than the stuff with the baby, it was the one part of the movie that I was genuinely smiling about. I'm gonna let Robert talk about the memes because I could give a shit, because like, it was funny as sight gags are funny, but I could give a shit less about the Minions and what they were doing as the Frightful Four. Robert?
Look, I had a good time at this one. I laughed, which is about all I ask out of these things. Yeah, the emotional core that exists in this one, such as it is, it's about the Gru and Gru Jr. trying to bond, and there's some emotional stuff there, but this never really like gets deep into it. It's a lot played for gags, but it's played consistently enough through the movie so that there is a payoff that you do care about.
Yeah.
There's also, the baby does some funny stuff. Like, when Gru's waiting for Edith to get out of school, is like, me time. And, Gru, the baby then proceeds to like pop balloons to disrupt his coffee drinking.
And he's like looking around, it's like, wasn't me? What? Wasn't me?
He takes his toy and throws it down and then goes, Like, Gru's watching him do this. He's like, give me, fine, here's your toy. And then makes him like pie face into a banana that gets stuck on his nose. So there's a lot of fun stuff like that. The minion stuff, it's a lot of sight gags. You kind of just got to go for the ride on those. I don't mean to, be weird about this one. The Mega Minions spinoff to me, and I'm not saying it's impossible. I do wonder how much of that was them deliberately being tongue-in-cheek. Like, okay, what's the most obvious sequel bait spinoff cash grab type of thing we can throw into this? We'll give 4 minions superpowers. Yeah, 5, sorry. We'll give these minions superpowers. And clearly, this is what everyone's doing, and we'll have an assemble the Mega Minions moment. And it's almost, again, like a send-up of how everyone always does this now with whatever they're doing. The irony being it might actually land them a spin-off that they decide to do something with. We'll have to see. Reassembling the Mega Minions, I got a kick out of. Because there's
the
one
cheese
that
skiing.
skiing.
That was great.
That was a great one.
Sorry. The running of the bulls genuinely made me laugh.
Oh yeah, because one of them just brings all the bulls with him. He's been ranching. One of them brings a bunch of seagulls, and poor Will Ferrell's character gets bombarded with seagull poop. One is become an apiarist and brings all the bees because they love him and they just follow him. And then the Thing was just in Vegas playing the slots. There's a lot of great gags there to be had. I mean, I laughed at the tennis sequence when one of the minions walks in and is now the line judge.
Oh my God. Having just seen Challengers, I laughed hard at that stuff.
Dude, when he's throwing red cards and then just picks up a giant placard and brains the guy with
it.
Come on. That's a Chuck Jones or Tex Avery bit.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Yeah. Red card. You can't just keep just blowing the whistle constantly. I got a kick out of the pit stop minions for the baby. Especially them coming out to Hot for Teacher because it's just it's a great guitar riff to introduce, the pit crew to.
Right.
That one poor minion that gets stuck in the vending machine is constant amusement.
It was in the trailer, but I do love that they shake up the soda and throw it in there and it goes off like a bomb.
At one point, he's reading the vending machine diet.
I saw that.
So, the minion stuff, like, it's just good cutaway gags. I mean, ideally you get more out of it, but at the same time, like, if you're laughing and having a good time with those characters, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I agree that, there's a bunch of stuff in here that feels a little underdeveloped. We have the kids that go to karate and that's supposed to pay off Agnes not wanting to lie. And it's a fine enough thing, but I feel like you could, if that's going to be a thing you try to set up and pay off, you need an actual payoff to it. Kind of ditto Margot going to the new school.
Yeah, she gets a freaking glitter bomb in her locker. Which, side note, that is monstrously cruel. And that doesn't go anywhere either. The only bit that comes to is later when Poppy says she wants to hang out, to which I actually got reprimanded for this because when she just casually says, "So you ever seen a honey badger?" I laughed so hard at that, just the casual mention of a violent honey badger in her backpack. And my mom actually looks over and goes, "That wasn't funny." I'm like, I don't care. I laughed.
I didn't realize your mother was the supreme arbiter of humor.
She thinks she is.
Yeah, so there's stuff there that, like, you could actually expand that into a whole, like, sub. Margot's had a couple of decent subplots throughout the course of this thing. You know, she starts out being the skeptical one about Gru. You know, the other two are more willing to go along with him because they're younger. But she's the one that he kind of has to win back at the end of the first one. She's the one who gets her heart broken by a boy in part 2, and Gru just then freeze raised the little bastard, which fair enough.
Well, let's face it, Mark's going to do that to the first boy that breaks Lily's heart.
Or girl, or they.
Yeah.
It's 2024. Get with the times, Pally.
You can make that joke when it's just you and me, Mark. You know that. But other people take it seriously, and then it gets awkward.
Okay, moving this on.
But there's a...
She's fine. Keep going.
There's a bit where... So there's a few bits that could have been developed. Oh, the other thing that made me laugh. There's a very small subplot where Edith has to leave behind Lucky, the one-horned goat that she thinks is a unicorn.
Right.
And he's like, but I'm wondering if he'll even remember me if I see him again. Like, you've been gone for a day and a half, kid. So there's a degree to which you're trying to... But when Lucy goes, oh, of course he'll remember you. You spent all the time together. You taught tricks. You gave him food. You have your podcast. I needed a minute there, man. Like, you got your podcast together. I needed a minute. That was too real. It was a little too real.
I'm gonna rename the show Agnes and Goat.
Because Agnes and Lucky, you know that's like 3-minute episodes up on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
and TikTok. Like, oh man, probably with more views than we have.
Oh, by far.
So there's just a lot of, stuff that I laughed at. There's enough logic and emotional core behind enough of what's going on to keep you going. What more can you really ask for out of this stuff?
Not much more, Pally.
Yeah, if we keep going with these, I think it might be time to, dedicate some time to some of the other characters. I would like to see some stuff just with Margot. I would like to see some stuff. There's other ways if we're going to keep going that we can kind of section this off a little bit, but I don't think we can do this again. Specifically, try to keep expanding the cast.
Here's the other problem: they have a baby who is almost 1, given its mobility. He's still crawling; he's not walking. So we're close to 1 with this kid, and the girls haven't aged at all. Like, we're doing Simpsons level aging here. So we need to age everybody up some. And
I agree with that. They need to do a little bit of that. But mostly, this franchise is just eminently rewatchable. It's almost effortlessly funny. I mean, look, this is not something you rewatch to like experience the depth of humanity or to really break down and study. But if you're just gonna throw some easy watching on,
if I have to babysit 4 to a 7-year-old, and I need to throw something on, I'm gonna just make a bold statement here. I would probably throw any one of the Despicable Me or Minions movies on before I would throw on a Pixar of the last 10 years.
Certainly of the last 7.
Look, the best stuff of Pixar is amazing, and it's heartfelt and it's deep and all of that. Yeah. And we have just gushed about the quality of the best of Pixar. I'm not a 7-year-old child, though. This shit appeals to you and me and Alexis, but we are also middle-aged adults. If I have to entertain a 5-year-old in the TikTok ADHD universe that we currently exist in, I'm throwing on the Minions movie, and I'm probably throwing on Minions 2. So
either Minions or Minions 2 both work. They both serve largely the same focus there. That's what was the other thing I laughed at? Okay, I did get a kick out of Gru. Like, I don't make things awkward. I'm warm and lovable, like a meatloaf. Of all the things you could have chosen.
That's pretty
then he waits like, I'm not making it awkward. You're making it awkward. You called yourself a meatloaf, buddy. That's awkward. Sounds
like an interaction between you and I, to be honest with you.
Again, I can only fight the accusations of everyone else for so long before I realize I'm fighting reality. I'm kind of Gru.
Yes,
Gru.
you are.
All right, folks. With that said, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Alrighty. Box office.
Box office?
First of all, box office. So this thing's already made money and shit tons of it. It's got $100 million budget. Its box office week so far at the time of this recording. This opened on an extended weekend. It opened July 3rd.
Yeah.
This is now the Monday after, so that was a Wednesday. So it's made $233 million as of the point. This is a wild and crazy success. Like, where there's been a lot of media lately about since Bad Boys, it's been one hit after another. The bases are loaded. Now we're hitting grand slams. Yeah, we'll see what happens in August after Deadpool. But as of July 7th, 2024, Despicable Me has grossed 122.6.
Okay, not to be the producer in your ear, Mark. You gonna share your screen?
It did. Oh, it didn't come up. There we go.
There it goes.
All right. Has grossed 122.6 million in the U.S. and Canada, and 106.9 million in other territories for a worldwide total of 229.6 million. It's actually gone up a little bit since then. In the U.S. and Canada, Despicable Me was projected to gross 125 in over 4,000 theaters in its 5-day opening weekend. The film made 27 million on its first day and 26.8 million on its second. It went on to debut 75 million over the traditional 3-day weekend, along with a total 5-day gross of 122.6 million, topping the box office. So yeah, runaway hit. We are out of the doldrums of May and into the high earnings summer of July. All right. So Despicable Me was the #1 movie of the weekend. It knocked Inside Out from 1 to 2 in its 4 weeks out. Inside Out 2, I don't have it in front of me, but I posted it in our group chat. It's breaking all kinds of records. So Inside Out 2 also a wild success.
Hey, do you want me to pull that up?
Yes, but hold and I'll cue you, if you please. A Quiet Place day 1 in its second week dropped from 2 to 3. And Robert, you want to address the 60.5% drop?
Yeah, it actually opened okay. You know, it had an okay opening weekend, all things considered. 60% drop is rough. That's a rough drop.
Yeah, that is if those who saw it opening weekend saw it, and we're done now. Maxine, it's a little disappointing. Debuted at number 4. It grossed 6,705,000. I think those are domestic numbers. It opened in less than 2,500 theaters. I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I don't want to get into it too much because I'm going to talk about it this weekend, or this Thursday, with my new best friends, Neil and Chris, over on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. We are reviewing Maxine and A Family Affair. Maxine might be my favorite movie of this year so far. This is one of those times I'm stepping out of objective statements and making subjective statements, so let's not have a fight about it. But you guys know me, you know what I like. And
odd-looking women and a lot of sex.
And I like noir. I like sleaze. I like the 80s.
You like the 80s?
Kevin Bacon doing a Louisiana accent.
I like New Orleans and everything about it and all the people trying to imitate it. It's just, Maxine was everything, and it was executed pretty flawlessly. I had one quibble with it, which I'll talk about with Neil and Chris. But overall, I have thoroughly enjoyed the X trilogy, and to the point where I'm going to break a Radulich rule. You know, because the Evan Bevins of the world are always like, hey, what if we did, superhero movies that occur at Christmas? I'm like, go fuck yourself. We've already reviewed these. I'm not repeating anything I've already done. I've said it once. I don't need to say it again. However, Sean and I reviewed X as part of a porn adjacent triple feature a year or two ago. I had a great discussion about it. But I never got a chance to review Pearl because I saw it on a date and we never talked about it. Only in like the best of list that we've did and stuff, and I've addressed how much I enjoy the trilogy. So since we're not going to get to it on Damn You Hollywood, and I'm going to talk about it with the other guys, I wanted to do a long road to ruin on the X trilogy and revisit X, and I'll get to talk about Pearl for the first time and that's when I'll do my review of Maxine for us. But that's going to be later this year. And at this point, with whoever shows up, I'm just kind of throwing stuff on the calendar now and putting people's names on it. And I'm like, we'll see who Maxine makes it to that date. You might just find yourself on one of those, Alexis. Like,
I would actually love to do a Long Road to Ruin on the Ty West trilogy. Yeah.
Okay, I'll throw your name in there. I'm not worrying about who else is on it. We'll see if that person actually shows up or not. I've stopped. I no longer care who shows up to what anymore, as long as I get a person.
I still stand by that the sequence at the very end of Pearl of her smiling over the credits is going to go down as one of the creepiest moments in horror film history.
The most perfect moment in cinema history. It's amazing. I was starting to say it before I went on the tangent. I have thoroughly enjoyed the X trilogy. It's up there with Lord of the Rings for me. It's in terms of pure enjoyment, film craft. If you don't like it or you don't think it's as good as I'm touting it to be, that's fine. I don't really want to fight about it. It has brought me, I don't get to say this very much, believe it or not, as much as I gush about things. There are a few things in life that have brought me as much joy as the X trilogy has. Like, I just love those movies, and I love talking about them, and I tell people all the time about these things. And I got to see Maxine over the weekend, and I walked out of the theater smiling. I was like in the best mood, So say what you will about it. I'm a little sad that it made more money than it did, but it's also just the nichiest of niche movies. I'm not all that surprised.
It really is.
I mean, it's a hard R horror film. It's
about a porn actress trying to break into horror movies in the 80s, running from a slasher. I mean, it was like, do you want to throw more qualifiers in there to make this fucking inaccessible? By the way,
the only thing that could have made this more inaccessible is if you made her a lesbian,
or had it directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. More on that in a moment.
Oh, God.
Yorgos.
Speaking of Yorgos, Bad Boys fell from 4 to 5. Horizon American Saga chapter. Speaking of things that are bombing, 3 to 6.
Yeah, that blew up on the launch pad.
Yeah.
Poor Kevin Costner. It's just like, dude, you're never going to remake
Dances with Wolves.
Yes, thank you. It's like, sorry. It's like, look, I know you want to recapture it, but just go sit in the corner with Ridley Scott, okay? Just go.
Debut number 7 is The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot.
Never even heard of that.
Yeah, no clue.
Well, this is another one from Angel Studios. It's in kind of a spin-off because Sound of Freedom became a surprise hit for last year.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those movies. Okay.
Yeah, it's same kind of vein.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry. Frankly, it sounds like an animated film they would show kids at Sunday school.
It's not.
It's very much not.
Kalki 2898 AD fell from 5 to 8. The Bike Riders, speaking of things bombing, in its third week, fell from 6 to 9. The Fall Guy looks like it.
We got a comeback.
Yeah, it had a weird comeback here. Jumped from 19 into the top 10 for some strange reason, 10 weeks out. This thing's on PVOD. It's like available to watch by anywhere at any time. I don't know why people are going to the theater to see it now. Okay, let's talk about Kinds of Kindness for a moment.
Do we have to?
Well, we're going to next year on the Oscars podcast, and if you actually, it's like, if you think I'm wrong, then
that fell from 9 to 11. So I saw it last Friday night. I talked about it. That was the other one. We reviewed Axel F and Kinds of Kindness on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, and inaccessible. It would be a word I would use to describe Kinds of Kindness. I said on the podcast at the time, it's not a badly made movie. If you are as Chris said, a film chad, I think there's a lot to take away from Kinds of Kindness that you can appreciate. However, if you are looking for an entertaining movie,
why the hell are you watching a Yorgos Lanthimos film in the first place?
I said this to that point, Alexis. I said, I feel like, after The Lobster and some of these other ones, like, he comes out with poor things and he's just going to assume it's as inaccessible as everything else. And then it gets wild acclaim, wins all these Oscars. It does this, it does that, and it makes him kind of a quasi household name. And Yorgos is like, I didn't want this. I wanted to remain completely inaccessible. I wanted to cause women to walk out and cry. And now people think all I do is poor things. Fuck this. And then he makes Kinds of Kindness just to make sure everybody knows he's terrible. And his films are well done and utterly inaccessible. I have no other explanation for Kinds of Kindness.
I said it before. Yorgos Lanthimos is the kind of director that we're going to talk about in 100 years in film studies. And he's a director. It's like, yeah, he's amazing. I never want to sit through another one of his films, but he's amazing.
Shay had a great line on the Bike Riders because Mac was like, why would you make the Bike Riders? I don't understand this. And she wrote in a comment, she was like, this was amazing. I loved it. This is an important film. This is amazing, important, and I hated it. And that's about where I landed with Kinds of Kindness. Robert, do you want to say anything, or you're just like, nah, move this on?
Haven't seen it yet, so
okay.
There's a bunch of stuff I'm gonna wait till it streams, and I'm not spending my time or my money on a bunch of this stuff.
This is almost 3 hours. You are wait for it to come on PVOD.
Yeah. Well, again, we know we're going to be talking about it next year on the Oscars podcast, so it's like we know we might as well hold on.
I assume no such thing.
Kingdom of Thelma remained in 12th place 3 weeks out. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is slowly making money. That fell from 8 to 13. Kill, a violent Indian movie I didn't take my children to, debuted at 14. Garfield plummeted from 7 to 15.
Not surprising now that we got Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4. Now it's got a lot more competition with admittedly much better family films.
Yeah.
Garfield was able to hold its own for a while because it didn't have any kind of competition for that market. It's not going to compete against Illumination and Pixar.
Correct.
If is now on PVOD, I believe they just announced today. I saw the article in Variety that dropped.
Yeah,
from
it's
10
on
to 16.
Paramount Plus.
Blue Lock 13 to 17, Janet Planet 21 to 18.
Whatever they call that.
Yeah, Furiosa dropped a point from 18 to 19.
Just saw that last night, actually. Andre wanted to see it.
How was it?
I can't believe I'm saying this considering, what I had, the stuff that you and I talked about when the trailer was dropped and the couple of the guys in the chat were going, why the hell do we need a movie on Furiosa? And I was making fun, like, oh no, look, boys, ovaries, run. But watching it, I'm sitting going, yeah, it's good. But why did we need a backstory on Furiosa? It was good. It was well done, but unnecessary. We just we saw him like, we just want to watch Fury Road again now, which is on HBO Max, and we watch that, which is still an incredible movie.
Oh, yeah. Showed it to a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they acted exactly how they should have with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hijack 1971, debuted at 22, Escape 23. The 70th anniversary of Seven Samurai, debuted at 27.
I am so pissed that the closest that's coming to me is like over an hour away. I'm so upset. I would absolutely... If it wasn't that far away, I would go to see that movie on the big screen, in a heartbeat.
Make a day of it, man. Take a trip out. Mother Caps debuted at 31. The Nature of Love at 42. And that was the weekend that was, as Henry Kissinger would say that way. All right. The number one movie in the world is Inside Out 2. It's made over $1 billion, as we said it would. It's currently at $1.2 million, as a matter of fact. Dune Part 2, 711. Godzilla multiplied by Kong, 567.
Still doesn't get you to $600 million.
Nope. Kung Fu Panda 4 at 544. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at 394. Bad Boys is 360. Garfield 244. There you go, Alexis. Despicable Me 4 debuting on the charts at number 8 at 230 million. And
that will go up.
That's going up.
That's going up. Ghostbusters got knocked down to 9 and will be promptly knocked out within the next few weeks of the top 10, as will If, which is currently at number 10. All right. In the top 20, we've got Bob Marley, A Quiet Place, The Fall Guy, Furiosa, Beekeeper, Civil War, Mean Girls, Madam Web, Exuma, and Argyle.
I was going to say, are we going to start doing every year? It's like, and here's the films that are doing worse than, and it always ends up being the films that are in the Sony Spider-Verse. So now it's good. So it's like, I'm waiting for
worse than Madam Web.
Yeah. It's like, I am waiting for that to start as the running joke.
Oh, Madam Web's still within the top 20. And there are, and if you, so a couple of films, and I don't even want to do the joke because none of these are like point and laugh. Argyle probably should have done better than it is. That is the one true failure in this list of fucking hodgepodge. I mean, challengers, which I talked about with Neil and
Hang on, let's not beat around the bush. Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was supposed to be higher.
Yeah, it's not even in the top 30. It looks like.
Oh no, it's way down there.
Yeah.
Oh God, Abigail is doing worse than Tarot? That doesn't seem right.
I feel like even at 42 million, that was still profitable, but they shot that
Yeah.
thing for $150. So it's just a
It's
couple
a
of
much better movie than Tarot, but it's also Abigail's probably harder to convince people to see, whereas Tarot is maybe easier to drag a bunch of the idiots to.
Look, and not that our stupid podcast is the biggest gauge for what's popular and what's not, but I will tell you, like certain things, like the bike riders, for numbers that do well for us. I don't need to get into the nitty gritty of this and embarrass us, but there's a certain number where if it's higher than that, okay, there's some interest there, or at least there's interest in us talking about it. The bike riders got a high amount. I think Furiosa did. Definitely like the beekeeper was like 2-3 times what we normally do. And then there's stuff like Abigail where there's barely a blip. I don't think anyone gave a shit about that movie. It is successful because it was cheaply made. I mean, we had plenty of nice things to say about it, but I don't think by and large people cared. And now it's available on streaming somewhere somehow, and I still don't hear people talking about it.
Probably. Let me check. See where that one is.
So just kind of to finish this up, Night Swim is at number 26. The First Omen 27. Back to Black. Whoever studio made Back to Black, I was just like, oh, surely people would be interested in an Amy Winehouse movie. No, they are not.
Most people alive right now don't even know who Amy Winehouse is.
It doesn't help that the one song that she actually had a massive amount of notoriety for is the only song they're using in the trailer. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know enough people who are big enough fans of Amy Winehouse that they know any of her songs other than the Rehab song.
Yeah, I don't. It's the only one I know. All right. So yeah, that's the money. We got a break this week, and I don't remember there being anything worth talking about. That's why it gave us a bye. So
we're gonna see about. Hang on. We're gonna see about that.
Okay.
I'm going to go see Long Legs when it comes out. And
I meant to ask you about that because I have the calendar. Where Monday I'm doing Sons of Anarchy because I put that in the spot where we would normally do it. Yeah. But I was going to ask you if you wanted me to move stuff around and throw Long Legs on the schedule.
Let me see it first.
Okay.
If it's worth talking about, then yes, I will throw a thing up and say who wants to come. Let's talk about this. It's worth a discussion.
The other side is
hang on.
Let me do my thing. Thank you. I don't know if you know, but there's this girl that bothers us on the podcast, and she's always wanting to do her own thing away from me. So you might want to call her. It's Alexis Hejna or some such nonsense. But she always likes to bother me and be like, hey, can I do this horror podcast without you? You bothersome man, you misogynistic person. And I'm like, leave me alone. Nosferatu's already on the schedule. Go make jewelry or some shit. Anyway, call her. Maybe you guys can do Long Legs.
Do you hear this,
together.
Robert? Do you hear him insulting the unholy trinity like this?
The unholy trinity. Rob's like, I don't know what to do.
So I'm gonna watch the movie and see if it merits a discussion. If I think it does, I will let everyone know, and I might harass you about it, Mark, because you doing a horror movie in this vein might amuse me to no end.
Okay.
It's a Nicolas Cage horror movie, so that's also fun to hear Mark talk about.
I'm not against trying to shoehorn this in the schedule somewhere. You very rarely ask me to do anything. You, Robert Winfree, are the kind of guy who likes to who likes to be on fire and not trouble anybody for a glass of water. I don't know why, but I'm not here to head shrink you. However, because you ask very little of me in that sense, if you want to do it, I will figure it out. Moving on.
So this is one of those that I'm not confident saying yes, let's do it in the dark.
Yeah.
Because if it winds up being kind of a nothing movie,
I mind doing don't mind doing it with the lights on. Like we got it. So after that, you just fucking set yourself up for that.
Yeah, you really did.
So then we have Twister.
Here I am using poker terminology, and Mark can only reference.
I cannot only. I just choose to do it that way. We got
He
Twisters.
just loves to see you squirm.
We got Twisters coming up, and then Deadpool and Wolverine, which is tracking to make all the money ever in history. And then shortly after the Wolverine,
There's a chance I wind up protesting that film, but we'll see.
Speaking of setting yourself on fire, then we have another break, and then we have Borderlands. God, listen to this fucking what do you call it? Murderer's Row of films from mid-August on. We've got Borderlands, Alien Romulus, The Crow, which looks like absolute dog shit.
I have never seen such negative reviews coming out from that movie. I mean, it's not the whole, oh, this is going to suck, it's going to be hilarious. This is the what was the line from the animated show The Critic? If the movie stinks, just don't go. That is literally what the early reviews are saying. They're like, no, do not give these people your money. Do not see it.
I got to show my kids the original Crow and tell them why this is a crime against film. So we have another break, and then we've got Beetlejuice 2, which everybody in their I'm this close to walking off that review. Like, I'm so mad because I threw the gates open and I was just like, invite everybody, invite all your friends. I don't care anymore. I don't care who gets along or doesn't get along. I don't care who's on a podcast. I just stopped having to reschedule things because people no-show me. And then everyone went, great, we all want to do Beetlejuice 2. Fuck me running. I don't even want to do Beetlejuice 2. That's not an invitation to take it over. I'm just whining.
I was going to say, I'm sorry. I thought that I was working amongst the crew of Tim Burton Can Suck Cocks in Hell group. Where did all these people come from?
Your friend Dorian.
Of course he did.
and then in his traveling circus that I all want to get in on the gag. Same thing with I threw up an on trial for Beetlejuice just to do it, just because whatever. And again, that was another one where it was like, this is On Trial, the debate podcast with me and another person, starring 50 fucking people that want to talk about the original Beetlejuice that I don't even want to talk about. My life. I do this to speak Italian. My children and I decided that when you do this, you're speaking Italian.
That's just a little racist.
This is minor racism. Anyway, so after everyone doing Beetlejuice, we got another break. And then we have Transformers 1, The Wild Robot, Joker.
Transformers 1 looks kind of poor, if I'm going to be honest.
My son's excited for it, but he's also 10.
Yeah. This looks like an 8-year-old movie. And,
yep.
It doesn't help. I would say they're not even appealing to a wide enough demographic because they've completely massacred the origin story of Orion Pax and the whole before he was Megatron's like, no, he wasn't.
I gotta bring on the kid that I did. He's like my age. The guy that I did the last Transformers series with. I think it's Calandros. Because he's a huge Transformers fan and knows all the lore, and I want to see his head spin around and spit pea soup talking about Transformers 1. Also, to be clear, I could give a fuck less about the history of the Transformers. I liked them as a kid. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, then we got Megalopolis, which I threw on the schedule. That finally got a release date, which apparently is being laughed out of theaters.
Well, hang on. I'm torn on that one because if you look at all the people who are being pissy about this, it's all the people who sign off their reviews with, I can't wait to see where the MCU goes next.
Fair.
And it's entirely possible this thing is a catastrophe. Let me be very clear about that.
Well, Francis Ford Coppola is one of about a dozen guys who, was relevant 30 years ago and is still trying to, and is still
longer.
40. And is
little longer.
Alrighty. And is still trying to find his place in Hollywood, even though the medium and the culture has passed him by miles. So I'm curious about it. I have, Dorian's curious about it. There's a few of us that are interested in see what he came up with here.
Oh yeah,
I don't have a lot of hope.
I'm very curious about it, and this might be a too dense, inaccessible train wreck. But it's also entirely possible there's a lot of people who have never really watched a Coppola film or serious film in general looking at this one because, oh, there's a story behind it. And because their brains are fried by TikTok and the MCU and just pop culture trash, they don't know how to analyze or discuss what they're looking at.
Look, I just gushed about the fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie and said it was one of the best movies made this year, and Maxine. I apparently am starving for like solid art here. So
if you're heaping that much praise on fan service that's just done moderately well, you really are.
Yeah, I'm starving. All right. That being said, the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Well, that just says it all. The audience loved it, has a 90% score. The critics gave it a 53%.
That seems unfair from the critics.
So top critics, it's 53. When you move it to, all critics is 53. When you move it to top critics, it drops it even lower to 48.
Again, it feels like you're complaining about this movie because it didn't tickle your funny bone. And fair enough, if you don't like this humor, this is not going to land for you.
But
I feel like they're complaining because it's got a movie with the number 4 in it, and so many of these critics are basically going, "This franchise should have stopped. It's not good," just because they have this inherent anti-franchise thing going.
That's the
thing. I bet there's a lot of that.
So I said this about the Beverly Hills Cop because it also got a low critic score and a high audience score, and I said, I think there's a lot of critics that like if shit isn't high art, it's bad, and they're not really being objectively critical about the movie. They're judging it for what it's not instead of judging it for what it is. And that's not fair. And it's why we do this, other than I like to beat up on Kevin Carr. By the way, beating up on Kevin Carr is now like spreading like a virus. We've got the monkeypox of fucking beating up on critics because now Neil and Chris are doing it. Fucking Chris called out Kevin Carr on the last podcast. I almost shit my pants. I was like, oh my God, what have I started? The verified audience is 90%. All audience is 83. Fine. And the AI writes, fast-paced and teeming with slapstick gags, Despicable Me 4 is as overstuffed as a piñata, but full of enough candy to give audiences an enjoyable sugar rush. Oh, bad AI. Bad AI.
Bad critics that made the AI write that.
All right.
This is not overstuffed any more than the Emperor's New Groove is. It's just kind of a helter-skelter Looney Tunes ride.
Yeah.
All right. Lisa Lamont of Culturist having an existential moment here. All the predictable noise, smoking weed, doing dope, drinking beers, left me colder than Gru's iconic freeze ray. Oh, please play in traffic, lady, or whatever you are.
He doesn't use the freeze ray in this movie, so that joke doesn't even land anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Louisa Moore of Screen Zealots. Move along. There's nothing original to see here. Ma'am, that is not helpful.
We're pretending that there's original stuff to see elsewhere.
Yeah, it was like, I'm sorry, I wasn't under the impression that a movie has to be 100% original to be good.
Says someone who probably was verbally filleting the Marvels, just for the record.
Nate Adam of The Only Critic. Well, that's just a lie. More of the same, repetitive, annoying minion mayhem.
Yeah, we got I am convinced that, okay, I'm willing to bet you at least a half a dozen of these who gave negatives, if they mention the Minions in their review and about with it being negative, they haven't seen the Minions movies. They're just tired of the oversaturation of the Minions, and they are letting that be the catalyst of their judgment.
Probably.
Sidant Adlanka, IGN Movies. It's jabbering banana slug mascots are the only characters who make any kind of sense.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I spent an hour talking about that.
Okay. What was the joke I saw about this? Oh, there was some franchise or some movie that was a dead ringer for if someone's complaining about it, they don't have a good relationship with their father. I can't remember what it was because it was funny, but it wound up being so true. The more you looked at people who are like, boy, this sucks. Yeah, how's your relationship with your dad? And they get pissy about it.
Yeah, sure. And they go kick rocks. Speaking of dads, Uncle Robert Winfree, Roger Moore of Movie Nation. Are ticket buying parents satisfied by any of this? The film barely rises to the level of harmless slapstick distraction. You don't have children. Because
No.
I'll tell you, any parent that's ever brought their kid to the movies is happy for the fucking distraction for 90 minutes. They don't give a fuck.
1,000,000%.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
What
no,
a
this-
utter...
Admittedly, yeah, this is a movie that you can take little kids to, and they're just gonna love the bounciness, the movement, and yeah, the minions. This is a good movie to take little kids to because they're gonna really enjoy it and just, be completely distracted.
The future ex Mrs. Hejna, Doug Walker of Channel Awesome. Like man, it's totally like they took any jokes that didn't work in the previous installment and squeezed them all into this film.
Don't think that's accurate.
That's probably his sole judgment about the scene with Lucy in the hair salon.
Yeah. This is probably the only scene he saw. I don't think he actually saw the movie. Sean P. Means, the movie Cricket. There could be a funny movie to be made out of the Despicable Me 4, but playing the video of Carell and Ferrell ad-libbing in the recording booth. Okay.
Admittedly, I do love behind the scenes especially if they let those actors record together. I do love watching actors record, especially really funny comedians record their lines together and the way they kind of bounce things off of one another. It's a lot of fun.
Let's do a few more of these and then call it a night.
Oh, there she is.
Ah, yes, the future Xmas is Robert Winfree, Tanya Lamb of Lola Lamb Chops.
Why Mark keeps trying to encourage me to commit homicide like this, I will not understand.
I think you'll kill Grace Randolph. Nobody's doubting that. I definitely think you'll kill Carla Renata of the Curvy Film Critic. No doubt about that. But I don't think you'd kill Tanya. Tanya hasn't done anything to harm you. She's just looking out for the children and I think you would appreciate that about her. I'm not saying you wouldn't, run away from her to live in the woods to live deliberately, but I don't think you'll murder Tanya, your first love. Crew.
You are allowed to be wrong about a lot of things, Mark. Just for the record.
Yeah.
Misjudging this one might go very poorly.
This is gonna be a movie that Dorian and I are gonna make one day, and it's gonna be The Many Wives of Robert Winfree. It's gonna be like Henry VIII, but it's all film critic women. Crew and family are still charming and delightful, but too many subplots that don't go anywhere ruin the chance for this film to be really good. Yeah.
We mentioned that. It's not wholly unfair to mention there's a bunch of stuff that sets up and either pays off quickly or kind of just pings, but doesn't really go anywhere. But that's a feature, not a bug of this style of film.
Yep. Be nice to Jeffrey Harris, Mark, of 401mania.com. Illumination's animators created exceptional looking sequences and animated visuals, but the film lacks any sense of cohesive plot. As a result, Despicable Me amounts to a mind-numbing, entertaining experience. I don't think that's totally fair, but it does incorporate some of the things we talked about in our craft review. I just think he's coming to the wrong conclusion. I think he's coming to an unfair conclusion.
Yeah, pretending this is unentertaining or mind-numbing, I think is a bit much.
That's projecting his lack of entertainment onto the rest of us, which I don't think is fair.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat up on your buddy, but I think he whiffed the ball on that. Matt Donato of Paste Magazine, as in you eat it. There isn't an ounce of recommendable substance, soulful values. Are you fucking kidding me on the soulful values? Or slapstick sincerity with Despicable Me 4? Yeah, this guy was raised by nothing but women.
Oh, say, Mr. Donato, who ruined your childhood?
Who's currently hurting you is more the question.
All right, last one, and then I'm done. I'm done talking now. Speaking of ruined childhoods, Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics, my current target of bullying. Despicable Me 4 adds yet another enemy and a new baby into the mix, but the jokes are the same. Not.
They're not the same jokes.
Right.
I understand that you're kind of a,
toaster oven.
little bit, but pretending that these are the same jokes from the first 3 Despicable Me movies is just inaccurate. It's wrong.
Well, that's the end of our review, folks. Despicable Me 4. This week, to go back to the calendar again, this Thursday, we are wrapping up the second half of our High School in Trouble series that we did. We did the first one a few months back, and then life got in the way, and I had to do a bunch of rescheduling. But we are finally looking at The Substitute, which I've now seen all 3 of these. The Substitute, The Principal, and 187, to which I say, yeesh. Pat referred to these as the fun one.
You got one. You got one out of that group.
Yeah. So that's what's going on Thursday.
Is genuinely fun for what it is.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So that's what I got going on, other than second job stuff for me. Before I throw it over to Alexis, let me want to bring this up really quick. So I keep mentioning that I was on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, and Neil is nothing if not like a great Chris Bailey level like merchandiser. And we made a joke in one of the previous the Challenger shows about being in a threesome that I didn't get or stuff like that. And then he immediately made a T-shirt of that, and like I was like, oh, you got to send that to me. So we were talking, and he kept saying like, oh, I've made like Hawk 2 T-shirts and all this other stuff. And then I said to him like, hey, how do I get in on this? And he was like, it's real easy. Set up a page on TeePublic. It's not hard. The barrier to entry, not hard at all. So there are now and we have been talking about this for fucking years.
We've joked about this for a long time.
There was the running gag of
put it on a T-shirt, Mindy.
Put it on a T-shirt, Mindy. And because Jesse got a T-shirt made of him that says I'm a Jesse, and it's the Dr. Pepper logo. So I finally did it. I now have a T-shirt store. And we've got I'm not done uploading stuff just yet, but I started getting into all the Long Road to Ruin art that Ben Cologne did with his permission.
Did you tell Ben that?
Yes, after you scolded me, I went to him and said, "Hey, am I allowed to do this?" And he said, "Just share with me whatever you make, and it's fine. I don't care." So we've got all the old Long Road to Ruin art. The beautiful art that he made is all up on T-shirts now, and the beautiful art that Alexis made for our logos is there. I eventually got permission from her. My girlfriend asked me to make her a T-shirt, and then Jason, feeling left out, made his own. So there are 2 Daddy's Little Brat shirts, one that I made and one that Jason sent me, because I was afraid, and this is really funny. So the whole reason I redid the TV party logo was I didn't want to get DMCA'd for the copyrighted characters you use in the logo by trying to sell merchandise of it. So I was like, let me put one here, and I used artificial intelligence to create the image of more of what I've always kind of envisioned the logo to be. I wanted them sitting across from television, not this weird shit where the TV sits with them on the couch, but I gave up after a while. I was struggling with this. In any case, I got DMCA'd anyway. Not for this, though. One of Ben's artwork, the Lord of the Rings one, got nerfed. They were like, yeah, that violates copyright law. I'm like, they all violate copyright. Why are you just citing that one? But yeah, that one got taken down.
I'd argue it doesn't pretty clearly, but
yeah, it happened. I'm not fighting it. And then so this one right here, this is once again, I'm in the threesome I didn't want to be in, which is just something I was saying because of the shit that went on in my life over the past couple of years. But it was funny because I was fucking around with our artificial intelligence to make that design, and I was like, and it was all like very sexy, and at one point it created like nude images and stuff. I'm like, no. I need them to look sad and frustrated. That's the whole point of the shirt. And that's what you have
to tell the image generator that you want them looking sad and frustrated.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it did. And there you go. So if you would like 3 sad, frustrated people possibly in a threesome, there's your shirt for you. And then we've got the logo that Alexis made of the whole thing, and then our sessions logo. This is one of the early ones I did where I left the white in there, and I should have edited that out. I thought it would be funny to wear the shirt of the disclaimer that one of my ex-girlfriends wrote for me. We have the Damn You Hollywood logo, and the one that started it all, the one that got me going on this, was the More Dinosaurs single logo that Jesse and I did on the Sessions podcast.
So here's a fun little bit of trivia. That is TeePublic, right?
Yes, that is
if you have now, I have an account with TeePublic, and I've bought several shirts from them.
Yeah, so have I.
So When you sent me the links, I did go ahead. I went ahead and clicked on the debut Hollywood because I'm like, oh yeah, that's my design. Cool. I am now getting countless emails saying, hey, it looks like you were looking at something. Would you like to continue your purchase of it? TeePublic is trying to harass me into buying a T-shirt with my artwork on it.
I think that would be the ultimate, like, that would be amazing. Buy my shirt. The other thing,
It's my shirt.
the other thing, and this relates to a totally different podcast. I'll throw it up real quick. So, Jesse and I started the Sessions podcast, which is becoming its own thing, by the way. Like, I'm keeping Sessions around for a while. And oh shit, that's the wrong thing. Hang on. So Sessions is going to stick around when we're done with the Radulich and Broadcasting album. After that is we're finally doing it, Robert. You've heard me talk about it. We're actually going to do it now. We're going to do Fra Diavolo. So that's coming.
Okay.
You've heard me talk about Fra Diavolo, right?
No.
This was the all death metal album where all the songs are recipes from a cookbook.
That sounds awesome, but no, you've not told me about that.
Okay.
Dude, go for it.
Yeah,
that'll work.
Yeah. So the joke was one of my good friends from back in the day was like, we should start a band called Fra Diavolo, but all of our songs are recipes in a cookbook because the whole thing is no one can understand you when you do death metal growl. So it really doesn't matter what you're saying. So you could just read ingredients from a cookbook and no one would be the wiser and just give it a really funny sounding name. And I'm like,
you could probably hire Jerry Lynn to do the vocals for you at this point for $1.50.
Oh yeah, his voice is all fucked up.
No, don't you remember that was his gimmick for a while in WWE? Was you would do the death metal growl at the end of his promos because he likes metal and they couldn't come up with anything else for him to do because.
Gotcha.
What else would you do with Jerry Lynn other than have him complain at Jim Ross in a death metal voice?
Gotcha. So, but before we get to Fra Diavolo, we have to finish Radulich and Broadcasting the album. We've got our intro. We've got Worthless Opinions, which preceded all of this, but we threw it on there anyway. And we have the very first track from the very first episode of that podcast, More Dinosaurs. So, yes, if you go to suno.ai and you look at Radulich and Broadcasting, you can actually listen to this album as we're making it by episode by episode by podcast. So
it's fun. You guys should give it a listen.
Yep, Robert actually was part of the creation of More Dinosaurs. So
I'm still waiting for my 1 + 1 does not equal shoe song.
No, you're getting these are the plugs that pay me.
Of course I am.
Yeah, of course you are.
I suppose it's better than getting the Girl Who's Nuts About Corgi Butt song.
Ooh, I forgot about that. Let me throw that one on the list. The Girl Who's Nuts About Corgi Butts. All right. Next week is Sons of Anarchy season 6. And then we've got an on trial for Twister that Ronnie is on. Ronnie took that one from Sean. So that's what I got going on. All right, Alexis.
So hang on. I assume you're prosecuting that one.
I don't know what we're doing. It's Ronnie. We'll be lucky if he watches the movie. I might be doing Bugs Bunny on the baseball field, and then Sonny is a prosecutor, Mark Radulich is defense attorney, Mark Radulich, judge, Mark Radulich, jury member,
Mark Radulich.
Look, if you said that's Thursday.
It's a week from this Thursday. It is Thursday, the 18th.
Excuse me.
If you need someone to pinch hit on that one, if you need a new partner apropos of the randomness of life,
yeah,
I should be around. So let me know because I remember more than enough about that movie to talk about it.
All right, I appreciate the effort there. All right, Alexis.
Once again, I live in the on deck circle. I've got a tent set up here. It's where I am.
Actually, when we're done this conversation, I have to have both of you about that. But go ahead, Alexis, do your plugs.
Yeah, so I actually don't have a lot of shows to plug right now because nothing's really ending immediately. We're going to have a ton of stuff in August. We're still waiting for Acolyte, House of the Dragon, The Boys, and I think a couple of others to end. So
you're not hosting The Boys.
But I'm on it.
You are on it. So on it.
You were saying, Mark?
You were saying it like you were hosting it. I had to remind you you're not. That's my gig.
Okay, fine. Not a lot of TV party tonight. How about that?
Fair enough.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to ask you very nicely about this one. You can't do that when talking about anything adjacent to The Boys. It gets too weird.
Okay, move this.
Because it's The Boys. Someone is on it as we speak.
Okay.
There's a scene in this season where poor Jack Quaid gets tickled in a BDSM club until the person tickling him orgasms.
That's amazing.
Because it's The Boys.
If only
You
he
can't-
knew if only he knew the secret word, Zendaya.
Okay, I haven't watched it yet.
Mark, so that bit of weirdness that you do, we watched the termite do human sounding with himself.
Okay, Robert.
You can't do that about The Boys. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So you have been watching The Boys, Robert?
Keeping up. I haven't actually started until I can just binge the whole thing, but I know what's going on. Because, dude, there's sequences of this that you can't get away from if you're on the internet at all. Hey, look.
Somehow I managed it up until right this very second. Alexis, do your plugs.
See, I actually sent him a message saying, it's like, when you watch this, get ready for Firecracker. It's Pat's Dream Girl.
Yeah, that I heard something about. Go.
All right. Yes. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. Normally, this is our busy season with the conventions, but we've actually been taking a little downtime, which was actually kind of a blessing in disguise. We had some minor emergencies come up here at home, so I was actually really grateful to not have to cancel a bunch of appearances and start pulling my hair out. But our online shops are still open. We got our Etsy shop here open right at the moment. If you're a fan of anything geeky and fun related, you're going to love this stuff. As you can see, it's all made out of repurposed and upcycled game materials. Probably our most popular right here is our Clue bracelets made with Clue tokens. I still remember when Toys R Us shut down and I went in and they had everything on sale and I bought like 10 boxes of Clue, and the poor girl staring at me at the check. I was just like, what the hell? I'm like, there's a reason for this, I swear. So we got all that. As far as convention appearances, like I said, we're doing a little downtime. We are going to be picking things back up in August. We're going to be heading to Colorado Springs Comic-Con. Going to have a lot of fun with that. They've been announcing some great guests, including nearly the entire original voice cast of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Cannot wait for that. It's going to be a great turnout. And after that, we're going to be making appearances at the Cincinnati Comic Expo. We're there every year. Always love going out. And we just got approved for Planet Anime. That is a relatively new convention here in Kansas City. And they have confirmed they have 4 cast members of Has Been Hotel coming. And I am super excited for that. So like I said, you can find our shops on Etsy or Handmade at Amazon. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I will never call it X, and TikTok. Again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Robert Winfree, show us where you pissed from.
All right. There was no UFC event this last Saturday, so that was nice. Got to have an evening to myself, which I promptly wasted on other combat sports.
What'd you watch? Did you watch the Shakur Stevenson fight?
Little bit, and then stopped caring after 2.5 rounds because I knew exactly how that was going to go.
I fell asleep watching it. I did, however, watch Money in the Bank and live stream that whole thing on TikTok.
So, yeah, I watched some of Money in the Bank. Meh. Other people are kind of drooling over it. I am decidedly in the meh category on that one.
Sure.
But I'm a cynic about pro wrestling, and, you know. I watched Diaz and Masvidal box. That was...
Oh, that's right. That was that weekend. Yeah, that was a pay-per-view, so I stayed away.
It's got a good pace. At least it's not boring. It's not good boxing, but...
Right. I heard Diaz whooped that ass.
No.
No? Well, he won.
Yes. I don't agree with that, but I don't care enough. 6'5" either way is fine. Just
Okay,
for being
moving on.
honest. One of the scorecards was terrible. I think they were like 8-2 for Diaz. There was a terrible card in there. Or, sorry, 6-4, not 6-5. 6-4 either way, perfectly fine. So this week there will be UFC on ESPN 59. They're in Colorado. They've got an event that's kind of being held together with string and duct tape. They lost half the main event a week ago, and thankfully it wasn't the half that people cared about. So, so full preview of that on the MMA, on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast that I host. Give that a listen. We preview the card. We talk about news of the week. You know, all the good stuff. This Friday we'll have WWE SmackDown coverage, and they're having to start kicking up interest in SummerSlam. So, on the SmackDown side of things, we're getting Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes. It's very obvious that's what's happening at the moment. And we'll see how that decides to start going. After they wasted the briefcase on, hey, we need a little bit more heat on Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, right? Right.
That was the best part of the show for me, was CM Punk costing Drew McIntyre the match.
I will forgive everything I hate about Seth Rollins if his injury bug creeps back up and he cripples Phil Brooks, just for the record.
Robert, just out of curiosity, what did you think of Seth Rollins' feud with Jon Stewart?
The Green Lantern?
No.
Daily Show.
Oh, God, that's so much worse.
Yes. It was a waste of everyone's time, as is 90% of celebrity involvement in wrestling, and it led to Jon Stewart hitting John Cena with a chair and costing him the title. So I had to deal with more of Seth Rollins, and I hate that guy. I just don't like his work.
All right, wrap up, man.
So this, again, I will have coverage of WWE on Friday, UFC event on Saturday. So tune in for any and all of that. Possibility that we'll have a slightly more impromptu Damn You Hollywood next week for long legs. We'll have to wait and see. Again, I'm going to see it and then decide if it's worth talking about. And at some point in the near future, Mark and I are going, after we lose control of Damn You Hollywood, to the invading Mongol hordes, because that's on the horizon, right? That's coming.
Yeah.
Mark and I are going to, we have a fallback point established. We're going to retreat to the mountain fortress, and we will be launching Damn You Hollywood retro reviews, where we will talk about older movies that we haven't talked about here, and we will give them the Damn You Hollywood treatment. And that will be what we do while the unwashed masses run roughshod over this thing that we've created.
Starting with Falling Down.
I'm only half joking. I am completely down to do that if you are.
Yeah, we're going to figure that out. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us here on Damn You Hollywood. For Alexis, Hejna, for Robert Winfree, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.